I was sitting in a dimly lit room listening to what this man was saying. A long time ago, on Michelle's birthday, an accident happened. "Of course, Michelle is my wife," he said. "The accident was all over the news. Most don't talk about it today, though. But I think there's more to it. They're hiding something," he said creepishly. "Excuse me?" he yelled. "You don't know what I'm talking about?" Fine. I'll waste my breath telling you, even though I know you know." Okay, as I said, it was my wife's birthday, and my son and I were decorating. When we were done, she and I took him to school and dropped him off. On our way back, I was going to have a FaceTime meeting on my computer at home. As I sat down, there was an earthquake, a massive one. We thought our son's school was destroyed. We were horrified and thought it couldn't get any worse. Just then, a giant hand reached out from the ground, pulling in a bus driving by. After another 5 or so minutes, the earthquake stopped. No one else really saw the hand, but my wife and we know what we saw. I work for the government. When I told them what we saw, they made fun of us, saying, "Yeah, sure, monsters live among us, ha ha ha." My boss scolded me and told me not to joke. Later, I tried telling the daily paper about the creature, and they said they'd put the story in. The day the paper came, I picked it up to see the headline for satisfaction. When I looked at it, it wasn't there. There was some stupid thing about a music tour. I marched over to the daily paper's main office to ask, "Where's my headline?" They told me the cops said they weren't allowed to put it in because that's not what happened, and it would put the townsfolk in a false uproar. I was mad, but I let it go for then. But I never forgot the horror on the faces of the people in the bus. Although, now I'm feeling an urge bigger than ever to find out what that hand was, and I want you to help me, he finished. "What do you want me to do?" I said. He replied, "I was hoping you could do some research." "Like what?" I asked, of course. He told me he had dug in some old security footage on an old government declassified file. He showed me the footage. It showed something coming out of the ground quickly, but seemingly, right before you see what it is, it stops. Foolishly, I noted that, and he smiled. He replayed the footage very slowly and paused it, the frame before it stops. You see the clear image of a huge hand. I asked him why he didn't just show them already, and he told me, "I'm getting ready to. I just need you to look for other reports for our personal knowledge, so we can rub it in their face when they don't believe me again." I was going to ask, "Dude, you okay?" But that would have just been dumb. After a little more rambling, he let me leave. You're probably wondering what was just going on. I'd found a little online about what had happened, so I posted something asking him more about that so-called hand. He answered me. After a little more back and forth communicating, he and I set up a time to meet. The next afternoon, he told me he had talked to his fellow workers about the footage, and they said they'd get into it, though he told me he didn't believe them. After a few more days, we got a panel in a secret government base in New Mexico called Fort Magma, which I think is ironic because on the base they're making a controlled volcano. You may think, well, duh, that's why they named it that. But I found that the place was named before the idea of the volcano. Anyway, we checked into our hotel and he finished up our PowerPoint. The next day at our panel, we set up a great argument, and they considered most of it. After the panel, we were talking about school memories walking back to the hotel when another earthquake happened. This was an even more populated city than before, but when the creature's full body started to rise from the ground, ramming cars in its mouth as it rose, I was horrified. The creature was smashing buildings as it walked. We ran away with tons of people towards the harbor to get upon boats to escape. All of a sudden, so unexpectedly, another giant rose out of the sea. It was clearly Godzilla. It was stomping towards the creature with people dodging footsteps of the giant beast. Just before he got to the other creature, it curled up into a ball, slamming into Godzilla, knocking him to his feet. We had to go back to base to find out the plans of what to do. As I looked back, all I saw was Godzilla's atomic breath spewing everywhere. We reached base only hearing the screams of hundreds of thousands of people, explosions and buildings collapsing. My boss asked the other coworkers how they didn't notice Godzilla coming. And they answered, "We did, but we didn't have enough time to respond to what we saw." I was mad at them, knowing that they must have had enough time to warn people about him when they saw him, or they lied that they saw him. But I let it go. The military was quick to respond. Tanks, men, and planes were all around. We picked up some gear to take to aid some of the soldiers. We ran up a 30-story building to find them with machine guns and flares for when it got dark. Plenty of pedestrians were up there watching as well. Godzilla and the centipede creature were brawling and falling into buildings. The soldiers started firing to distract the other creature so Godzilla could get the upper hand. We had to abandon the building soon because the monsters were getting too close. When I saw the building get crushed by the beast, I worried that there were still people in there. We climbed up another building. Halfway up, we saw 6 people raiding the place. They were quickly taken away by the officers that were with us. When we got to the top, the sky was red. The city, red. I heard this eerie rumbling sound. Off in the distance, I saw Godzilla, glowing red, looking down with the most unsettling glare of all time. His atomic breath bolted out like a fiery lightning bolt. It blasted the creature's shell apart on impact. It was awesome yet horrifying. Then, so unexpectedly, Godzilla picked up the dead body, dropping it into the volcano. After that, Godzilla rampaged to the other side of the city and slid into the sea. We went back to base and learned it would take 10 to 13 years on estimation to completely rebuild the city. On our way to our slightly burnt and very dusty car with the stuff we salvaged from our wrecked hotel, we decided to walk over to a bridge. After I decided to walk on it, I immediately regretted it. The bridge collapsed and I got all cut up. After getting out, we heard calling out in the distance. My boss ran over, finding people trapped under a big block of cement. I got up and we lifted the block up. Of course, I picked up the smaller part, so it looked like I was the one who lifted it. The people thanked me and called me their hero. After I got home the next day, I couldn't help but think of those people calling me a hero. I called my friends up the following day, starting with the favorable fact that they called me a hero. No one else knew I had left to New Mexico, so I loved telling them. But most didn't believe me at first, but later they did. By now, quite a few more monsters have shown up, and I've been around helping people plenty of times now. I've been on the news a bunch of times, too. My nephews call me Scar John, which is silly and cute. The monsters got weirder every time, and I can't wait for a break. The end.